Greetings, Summoners. Cosmic here, and welcome back to another Battle Spirits Saga video. And today, we're finally getting back in the groove, the post-launch event meta, exploring different decks. And I gotta say, I am super excited. I've already tweeted about this last week and whatnot. But yellow kind of got insane if you have been playing testing, knowing what's been good, and kind of going into the Palm Springs meta where, you know, leading up to the launch events, I very clearly said, do not play yellow. It's not worth it. Nova's going to be all over the place, and there's X, Y, or Z reasons why it wasn't playable. And now today, I finally get to tell you the exact opposite of that is you need to play yellow. This needs to be on your radar for something to test going into the next Grand Opens, which are only a few weeks away. Now, that said, it's not going to be this exact list because Fabled Beast is really doing a lot of heavy lifting in the set 1 meta and what it's doing for yellow in general. So I like to build these lists for the videos for the sake of like, hey, here's just like a very good template to work from. But as you refine this list and as you cut out some stuff, like you probably don't need 4 copies of Behemoth. I just want to do it for the sake of the video and revisiting Fabled Beasts. Once you find some of these other options you can bring in, you really start to see the strength of this, you know, more attrition style of deck that can really go the distance against a lot of different options out there. And truly, there's like a 37 card core, whatever it was, I forgot the count before the video, that everyone can borrow from Fabled Beast. And then you want to play Nova on the top end? Sure. You want to play Elephant Enterprise on the top end, like I try to do in Vegas, that is now just better because of how the meta's lined up? Sure, go ahead. You want to play a Luster package in here and get all the value in the world with Exhaust Nexus? Yeah, you can. That's just how insanely flexible this core is for yellow to use in set 1. And again, I really do hope the tournament pack gives us something for Fabled Beast. Like, I want nothing more than a 2-drop Fabled Beast with a good effect that's not on summon. That's all I'm asking for, Bandai. Please give us something good. But overall, it follows the same principles of what I talked about in the last videos and kind of everything I've talked about for Fabled Beast leading up to this point. But in general, God Beast Behemoth is just one really strong key spirit, but then you have the Nexus support that really helps push yellow kind of over the edge to make it actually playable. And it's insane how good Exhaust Nexus is right now as it lines up to the meta. Now, again, post the first Grand Open that we see, depending on where the tournament pack promos line up, this might all change, but at least for the time of recording this, this is a deck you need to be prepared for, at least for the store release events, right? If you're just copying and pasting the launch events and those lists, you're going to be in a little bit of trouble. There's some good stuff there, so shout out to our friends at the True Duelist. The Pterosaur deck, I think, is really good, worth copying. There's obviously some very good ideas scattered in top 32, but you really need to be playtesting some very specific decks that we're going to talk about in future videos leading up to the store release event. So with that out of the way, let's talk about God Beast Behemoth himself. My big boss monster that I just love to play every single time. So it is an 8 cost with 6 reduction. But the important thing here is that you can get the reduction out of your graveyard for its effect. So it's kind of crazy. As I play this list more and more, there's a lot of times where I want Flying Turtle to mill a 2-drop. And I know that sounds kind of counterintuitive because if you're playing on summon, you want to draw a Fabled Beast. But at the same time, it's like, I'm going to play this Turtle. I'm probably going to draw 1 to 2 cards off the Nexus that I have in play anyways. And then, like, if it's a God Beast, great. If it's a 2-drop, I'm just going to bring back with Ervata anyways, like a Caladrius you don't want to see till late game, late game Luster where you have, like, Exhaust Nexus and a Burning Force, something like that. You just want to mill it out early anyways. That's fine, too. And it can ramp you in that regard. So it's a really interesting dynamic that I'm going to be curious to see how it plays out as we get more non-Fabled Beast 2-drops that like also go into this style of deck that turns God Beast Behemoth online just super early, which you will see in the couple of games that we ended up recording. But what makes this so strong is the level 2 and level 3 effect. When the spirit attacks, your spirits that cost 2 cannot be blocked by your opponent's spirits that are level 2 or higher during this turn. So yes, you get to attack with an 11,000 or again, sometimes 12,000 if you have like the Nexus in play and get to boost up the spirit. Forcing them to be at level 1 while having Exhaust Nexus on the back end just feels insanely strong. And then on top of that, I forget if I included in this video or was a game record offline, but there's a turn where you can just line up the God Beast, force them to be at level 1, and then you go Exhaust Nexus, Burning Force, goodbye to 4 of your units, and you probably win from that point. Like, you don't need Luster, right? If you can get those 2 spells off. Obviously, we're heavy yellow. The Pentons can make Exhaust Nexus free, and then Burning Force just helps chip off those 6,000s, or spirits that were 6,000, right? That then dropped down to 3,000, where they thought they were safe from Burning Force, and now suddenly they're dying as well. The sequencing does matter in some matchups, but it is really important note. So God Beast Behemoth really does help out, and especially like white matchups as well. All their stuff wants to be when blocked, which is going to have a higher level effect. Now they're forced to be at level 1. You still have to worry about suppression. There are things like Soap Bubble. We have some sideboard tech we can rely on. But all in all, being 11,000 is extremely, extremely relevant for this deck and how it matches up with the rest of the BP in the format. So God Beast Behemoth, I think, is still one of the things that you want to heavily rely on. I mean, it's a Fabled Beast. What more could you ask for, right? But it is something I think my lists are going to finish off at running 3 of, just because you have so many other ways to draw through the deck. And you generally don't need the second one, depending on how the matchup goes. Again, if purple comes back and we see more attrition base, I think you want to include extra copies just to be safe. So talking about the Fabled Beast in general, we have Flying Turtle. It is a 2-drop. Again, the when summoned, you want to try to cut back on as many of them as possible just because of Star Blessed being in the format. But Flying Turtle is doing everything that we want it to do. It's a 2-drop. We can get it back with Ervita. We can dig deeper for our God Beast Behemoth if we really want to. Again, milling is not the worst thing in the world if it's another 2-drop that we can get back with Ervita. But really, in my heart and soul of testing the last week, Ervita and Hippocampo. Like, I know, like, look, I was wrong. That's fine. Or I think I might have added the disclaimer, like, if aggro is important, like, Hippocampo gets way better. Hopefully, past me added that small disclaimer. But Hippocampo has been insane because it goes to 4,000. Now, it does drain you a little bit that both Ervita and Hippocampo have only 1 reduction. So having a hand that can get kind of clunked up with multiple of these where you're paying 2 every time does feel pretty bad. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, you're happy to see more Fabled Beast so you can draw more cards, get through your deck. And then Hippocampo just sits on the board as a threat that a lot of the other aggro decks have to respect. Now, again, if you're playing against white, it's not something that you're really excited to see, but at worst, it's still something that cycles and draws you some cards. At least, cycles itself. You have 1 Nexus in play, and then heaven forbid you have 2 or 3 Nexus. You're just happy to see us every single time. So when I talk about like the Fabled Beast package overall, these are really my 3 all-stars, and obviously Ervita does require you to have that lower 2-drop curve, which then goes back to God Beast Behemoth. Like, that all works together, but I'm really curious to see what 2-drop, or hopefully we get a 2-drop in either the Tournament Pack Volume 1 or EX01, and then we'll obviously get some in the second set, right? So looking all the way ahead to like lore set, we know that Bandai is going to retroactively give support to set 1 and set 2 archetypes, right before set 3 drops. So certainly Fabled Beast is something that's going to get support in one of those blocks, right? So definitely keep this on your radar. And again, I think Fabled Beast overall from a archetype core standpoint is really, 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 really strong, that we're going to see a lot more yellow decks going forward. And of course, that's also on the back of the 2 absolutely insane Nexus, Blessed Cathedral and Phantasmal Paradise. I gotta say, I'm kind of leaning towards more Paradise camp because, yes, Cathedral's insane. It has a much higher ceiling. It does so much more for you if you get to high roll and have the 3 cores on it. But nothing feels worse than putting 3 cores on it, maybe getting to draw 1 card because you attack with something they have to block, and then they just Burning Force on the next turn. Like, Paradise just on average is going to generate you so much more value on top of giving you that sometimes very important 1000 BP that going forward, I think I'm going to be on like a 4 Paradise, 2 Cathedral split, which just really feels weird to say, but I think that's where I'm at. Because again, Cathedral does line up kind of awkward at times, but it's definitely strong. Like, it has the higher ceiling, right? I really want to stress that, but at least for right now and where the meta is lining up, I think you just really want to focus on the consistency more so than trying to play this game where you can really try to get that level 2 out of Cathedral and it gets multiple value or multiple stages of value over the course of the game, right? Paradise just does it more consistently and for, well, nothing, right? You put it on the field, you don't have to commit extra cores to it. And in an aggro heavy meta, having extra cores to, put on spirits is really, really important. So I really am Team Paradise as of late. And then getting into our key spells. So Burning Force, obviously a huge addition. Hitting Nexus cards still really, really matters. Get those depths out of there or any other problematic Nexus. And also just really lines up well. And I got to give full credit. Like, I just wasn't on my radar because I'm like, oh, just 2 very expensive spells, yada, yada. But when I was in Vegas and I saw one of the devs like do a board clear with Exhaust Nexus and a Burning Force, I'm like, Oh yeah, that does kind of work like that, doesn't it? So, and again, you're not losing anything by putting Burning Force in your deck because it's going to hit a Nexus, and in 99 times out of 100, your opponent is going to play a Nexus that you want to kill anyways. So Burning Force just really helps you go the distance in that regard. And then Exhaust Nexus, the card just keeps getting better and better value. Now again, it is one of those things that you're playing it because if everyone is on the aggro mindset, you have to show them that you have it in the deck as a way to force them to respect it, which will naturally slow down the course of the game. Now that said, sometimes just having 2 of these is good enough, right? And your Pentons are going to make the first one cheap. So like in this deck in particular, it is very easy to just rip off 2 Exhaust Nexus and go GG, you're dead, right? Because you're going to board wipe them, still have a lot of recursion of value through your Nexus cards, and then heaven forbid you got to pull off the full combo with Caladrius. Grats, your 2 Exhaust Nexus just go back to your hand. So again, this is a card that if we see more of a shift towards mid-range and control, it can feel really, really bad. That's why we still have the Angelic Pressure in there. But at least from our testing so far and kind of what we expect the meta to be post-Vegas and what we've been testing, Exhaust Nexus is the gas and really what helps put yellow back on the radar. So I've been really happy with it. And then, of course, you're playing against purple. Everyone loves to punish purple. You can just set it as a burst anyways. They have to play out their Nexus. It's going to board wipe them when they play Bishop. It's a very good card right now and how it's lining up. And I know there's a lot of people going back and forth on, is purple the worst color now? Which, I'm not totally on board with. I think yellow still has a little bit of work to do. I think yellow is very, very good for this one very specific type of core deck. But I think overall there might be more flexibility in purple and variety of builds that you could play and do reasonably well with. So with that, I still have to this version might be tier 1, but I don't know. 2 cost just feels so bad, right? Like Shadow Aggro, in my opinion, does way better than what 2 cost aggro wants to be doing. So I think purple gets the token, advantage over that because of the Rotting Swamp just being so good. Playing depths for a lower cost feels great. All that good stuff. But for a overall, which color has the better deck? Yeah, I think we got to give it to yellow. Yellow has really been doing very, very well in our testing so far. And again, Exhaust Nexus goes absolutely crazy. So with that, here's a list one more time before we get into games. And the last thing I want to mention is Arcana Knight Hex. That was just in there to get a 4K body on the board, just try to get some higher BP thresholds. That can obviously get cut. Angelic Pressure, you always want to have at the lowest end 2. I probably should be a 3 of. And then Caladrius, as much as I love this card early on, and again, you just need 2 drops. I really can't stress that enough. You have to have a critical mass of 2 drops, but the second they give me a different 2 drop that I want to use, I almost put Penton Chick in here for crying out loud. Caladrius is just probably getting cut. The 3 cores for Luster just feels awful right now, and then Hex obviously is going to get cut as well for some variations. So again, if you want to play a Nova deck, play Fabled Beasts, splash Nova. If you want to play a late game top end with Elephant and crush your opponents, which you're going to see in these games is really, really good. Play the Fabled Beast core and then throw in some Elephants, right? If you want to have the purple combo at the top end, there's just so much flexibility at what this engine allows you to do. I think you can surprise a lot of opponents by at least game 1, because remember, this is sideboarding game 2, game 3. You can get them game 1 with this and then just have a different plan in your sideboard if you really want to. So I am expecting some version, not this one, some version of the core of Fabled Beasts to do well in the first Grand Opens if the meta continues to change in the way that we expect it to change, but we'll have to see. So with that, I hope you enjoy the games, and as always, make sure to like and subscribe for future Battle Spirits Saga content. But with that, let me know what you want to see next, and let's get into the games. All right, for our games this week, we're going to have actually 2 with white aggro because it's really important to highlight how it can shift in its plays. And then the game 3 will be versus the Rex deck. So we have primitive on white aggro starting off with a Peggy, which is interesting here because you can never be too sure what your opponent's playing if they play just Peggy on turn 1, right? They could be a control or they could be aggro, and then Bullet Ray is really going to give it away. What's important here to note that the game has fundamentally changed where you can't, if you don't know your opponent's playing game 1, you can't afford to just play a Nexus Pass because you can just die to some of these aggro decks. So here we're going to take the first chip damage because it's going to give us the power to play the Angelic Pressure while still having 2k on the Freezetol. And, we don't mind losing some early life just to help us play out the board itself, but Angelic Pressure really going the distance for us. And here's where I mentioned that getting the draw off of Hippocampo and now immediately being able to crack back and go up to 5 life against any aggro strategy is really, really strong, because now every turn we're going to be threatening, well, especially the next turn, right? A 4K body that can try to gain us some extra life. And a lot of the lower end aggro decks, especially like some early white and purple, can really have a difficult time dealing with that. And what I really love about the white aggro deck too in particular is the Peggy can actually just stay back as a potential blocker. So I can never fully go wide because I have to commit, 3 cores or something. But in this case, the Hippocampo is going to be able to swing anyways. So here, just trying to deploy more spirits, try to get some more blockers on the board in general. Powering up my Friesitol, going to 4K on Penton. And here is where I was trying to decide what I wanted to deploy, or if I wanted to try to put 2 cores on the Paradise to try to bump something up. But instead here, we're going to choose to go for the hopefully better advantage. He surprises us with the regain. So the Bullet Ray is actually going to go up to 5K as a blocker here. It restands and feels like a really bad spot for us to be with the Hippocampo. Again, would have been a 5-5, which at least could have traded. But now we're looking at a 4-5, which means that we just wasted this attack, so to speak. So we were just kind of cleaning up our steps here, like no pre-block flash, stuff like that, go to flash. And now here you can really see the strength of Exhaust Nexus, because he had to pay the cost for the regain and went wide. The Exhaust Nexus is just going to be able to clear his board. And now we have 5 reductions on our side of the field where he has just these 2. Now that said, there are still some bigger bodies, like Bullet Ray being a 5K is really, really good. But thankfully, we have the Friesitol. We're going to be able to cycle through these 2 drops that we don't necessarily need at this point. And then Hippocampo just staying on board as a lasting threat is really important for us. Ervita now giving us essentially a double blocker versus white. And now being able to give us back that Penton if we want some more magic reduction. But our board's pretty heavy at this point for yellow reduction. Like our God Beast is online, completely ignoring our graveyard, but still able to play a God Beast if we want to and then draw 2 more cards. Here I went back and forth if I wanted to try to, fake a... I stuck on this too long. I should have just, immediately swung out and try to pretend I had a Angelic Pressure or something, but here I kind of dabbled on it too long. I was like, I'm just going to play the God Beast from my hand. So one, it's a bigger blocker. It's a 6K. I know that he's not going to have, some BP boost power on his side, or it's unlikely, and it can't be bounced by Valkyrie, so it's a good card to get down early. And it also allows us to just try to get in some chip damage here. So on our next turn, now we're threatening that for our 2 drops, it's going to be very difficult for him to block. So yes, we are at 2. You can see that we do not have an absolute Ice Shield, but thankfully he looks like he's drawn Nexus. So he did draw the later half of his deck that wants to go into Elephant Control, or Elephant Value, excuse me. So kind of some bad draws there, but again, you can see where Absolute Ice Shield doesn't really matter at this point for the yellow side of the board, because we just are able to gum up the board so quickly. And there, that last turn we saw the Flying Turtle, which I mentioned in the deck profile, it doesn't matter what that 3rd card was. At this point, we're drawing 2 and we get a God Beast Behemoth on top of it, even better. So there's going to be the end of the game here, but there was a bit of a missequence between what can block, what cannot block, but essentially he's going to try to go for the regain, but because we have the Ervita on the board anyways, we are going to be able to get the double attack here. So we are threatening multiple attacks from the, God Beast activation, where it's really hard for him to block it out. So now in our second game, you're really going to see how white can kind of shift from the aggro strategy into just this crazy value game, in a game 2 and game 3 setting. So typical starts here again. Our Pentons are very sad. They're smaller. Bullet Ray is just kind of going to bully us. And here it's really dangerous. So your early game against white aggro in particular, again, they can just Librarian regain combo you out of nowhere and just kill you. So maybe I could have attacked with 1 Penton here. That's a pretty dangerous spot to be. And then to my surprise, he has his own Hippocampo, which I like the idea of it for the more aggressive mirrors that might be happening, or strategies people might be expecting. In this matchup in particular, maybe not the biggest deal, because we can hit that 4 anyways. And now thanks to the pen reduction, this is going to be a free Angelic Pressure, getting that Bullet Ray off the board. But Hippocampo isn't that scary in this particular setting for us, at least as a yellow player. Flying Turtle, here's where you're going to see it middle of Paradise, which feels really bad. Sometimes it's okay. Like, if you know white's going to be playing like Derm Dyna, you kind of don't want to play a Nexus anyways. Now, we do have the Hippocampo, so there are some board states where we can just try to, you know, stick it out and gain some life off Hippocampo and just dig through our deck quick enough. But here I'm just trying to preserve my life total because he played the Nexus, and I kind of feared that there was going to be some other bigger units we have to come down since he has a much slower start. So it's kind of like, what did he keep in his hand at this point? So as I mentioned, at some point you have to, you know, check what your opponent has. We're going to get chip damage here. We still have a couple blockers. Ervita does have the Pentant in the graveyard at this point. Like, there's still a double block scenario we can pull there. And here's where he drops the big old elephant. So yes, as a yellow player, we are never giving them the value out of the elephant, right? The draw 3, ramp 3, because we can just swing under it and go wide enough. However, it's still a 10k body that refreshes that we still have to respect. We can't just, you know, freely cycle it forever unless we have like multiple Freezitals on board and just block out with our 2-drops, right? But an early elephant that can just keep chipping away at our health and then just be a 10k body, it's a lot of work to overcome that wall. And I think a lot of late game decks, or decks that can go into the late game, I think we're gonna be seeing a lot more elephants in the near future. So here's a Dream Bomb. We don't have a Nexus, but he does get to bounce the card that we just played. So he does remove one of our blockers. And, you know, at this point, 4 cores kind of is a lot to keep an elephant. But, you know, what's better than 1 elephant? Why not 2 elephants? So suddenly we get to ourselves where, okay, we thought we were going against white aggro. We might have sideboarded a different way. And now suddenly white's just like, you know what? Have 2 elephants instead. And here's a lot of pressure that you have to deal with. Because, again, 7k itself is a very big body for yellow players to deal with. Like, we have to do angelic pressure, we have to get some other value up that way, and it takes a lot. And then 10k is just you know, a wall. So lucky for us, he did bounce Hippocampo, so we do get to draw a card from playing our Paradise off of it. But again, none of these BPs line up kind of how we want them to, and we need to make sure we amass a go wide enough board so where now Ervita counts as 2 attacks. And that's generally how you win the weight matchup, right? You just have a multi-attack them to death, if not God Beast into exhaust Nexus. So we know our Ervita is very important here. The Hippocampo is kind of sad because it can't get us any of the life that we need. And anyways, he's going to have the Valkyrie Mist, which makes us really sad. Gets our Ervita out of there, which is our double blocker if we need it. And now very quickly, you know, kind of able to turn the corner and be very aggressive with the Valkyrie into Bullet Ray. And with Elephant refreshing everything, right? You just turn the board sideways and don't care at this point. And here we're just making sure we're going back and forth, checking if there was any, you know, pre-block, flash, etc., etc. That's our proxy there. Sorry, but it was Absolute Ice Shield because, again, that board is very scary that our opponent just put down. The value of the elephants is really putting in a lot of work here. So we play our Ervita that was bounced back, get to draw another card. That's all great. So again, these past 2 games, like Blessed or Paradise is really doing a lot of the heavy lifting. And here we finally have the first Caladrius and a Freezital that says, okay, I know you want to attack me, but if you attack me, at least I have some 2-drops I can sacrifice, try to churn through my deck and try to find an answer to get out of this board. So again, just sitting at a 10k elephant across, it's good enough. It's a big boy. And just really quickly doing some math here, because we were skipping phases, you know, just casual playtesting as it were. So he is going to Dream Bomb here, so he's going to get rid of my Freezital, so I do not get that value anymore. And this is really what's can be a struggle for yellow decks, or like that, as I talked about a long time ago, the 6-drop white card that bounces all 3ks. Like, that would destroy our board right now if he played the 6-cost mech, which I think is a bit more niche, but it is really, really strong against yellow and resetting their board. So here we're going to go into another Exhaust Nexus. He did power down his board, so we are able to clear 2 things. But again, we are still faced with 2 big elephants that we are forced to just, okay, we have to block this. We don't want to go lower than 2. He's going to restand all his guys. Even if we draw another Hippocampo, like, we're not healing off of it. So we still have to, you know, chug through this board somehow. And at this point, it's just us trying to be aggressive, count how many cards he has in his hand, how many attacks can we survive. Ervita hopefully giving us another double block. I thought it was going to be Absolute Ice Shield, but it is just Dream Bomb. So Ervita unfortunately going back to our hand, removing our double block situation. And now we just have 2 blockers to his guys. And then on top of it, to completely surprise me, is the Odin, which is just going to bounce another one. So I really do think there's a lot more to be done in the, you know, I know everyone saw the all-in white aggro from Vegas, which is very explosive, very crazy, but I think there's a lot more to be explored on just like the mid-range, bounce all your stuff white deck that can really go the distance as well. So someone will definitely have to spend some time refining that, but here you really got to see the value of those 2 elephants just closing out the game, being a very, very pressure heavy, and again, why it's just such a good card in general. And then getting into our last game here, we're going to showcase a version of Rex. This is a slightly different version than the one from Vegas, if I remember correctly, but you know, Rex in general is going to be on a lot of players' radars after the launch events that we had. And especially here where I mentioned earlier in the deck profile part of this video, Hippocampo, it's great as a threat. It's better when you can surprise your opponent with it and heal one and then they have to play defensive. But getting 2 of these in our open hand when we just don't have like the Nexus to get value feels pretty terrible. Like our opponent still has to respect the fact that we have 2 of them, and of course then we hit the Paradise off the top. But at the same time, like your opponent still has complete control over the game if they're able to just continuously chip in damage knowing that we can't give up one of these Hippocampos. So now we have to find a way where we can go wide enough or find a board state where like an Angelic Pressure can help us get the key threat off the board and then swing through the other point of damage to then heal one. There was a bit of a back and forth on one of these turns where I was like, okay, well, I have the Paradise, which is going to put it to a 5k, and then he canyons or breaks one away anyways. But then I notice his Dynamo is still a 6k, so like it takes 2 Nexus and 4 cards just to go for a trade. That feels terrible. And if it also doesn't say how bad our hand is right now in this opener, I'm pretty sure I had to mulligan this game as well. We're trying to play a God Beast here, which it just takes our entire turn. We do get to draw 2, which is really nice. And I forget if I show it on cam or not, but at one point my hand was like triple God Beast, and that's just the worst feeling in the world, as you might imagine sometimes. But God Beast here being a 6k blocker does give us the opportunity to at least block everything like, what, 4 or less that they're going to throw at us, unless they dedicate a bunch of cores to it. And then unfortunately, he finds his Gigano Rex early. This is kind of like the worst case scenario, right, for the yellow deck and for a lot of, creature or spirit focused decks anyways, that Rex is just going to kill something every single turn now at this point. However, I do have the double Nexus online, so as long as I can keep drawing Fabled Beasts and I can keep getting to draw effectively 3 cards a turn, I will eventually get myself out from under this. So here we're going to see Ervita come into play. It's going to draw us 2. Important to note is that it's also going to protect our God Beast if we want to leave it back as a blocker, because Gigano will just go into the Ervita in this case, unless he has removal, and then, of course, the Behemoth would have to block it. Here I was asking how many cards in hand, completely forgetting that he played the Star Blessed. So here's where we're trying to play the value for, okay, hopefully if he challenges us, we're at least going to get to ramp 1 and draw a card. And here's exactly the moment that I was talking about in the deck profile, right? Like, this interaction just feels terrible. Like, yes, we wanted to have the Cathedral on the board. It would have been insane value from us, but if they're just able to answer it immediately, it's effectively like I just played 6 for depths that also didn't do anything. And that's a very rough spot to be. And no, that's not a mistake off the Ervita. I literally did not have a 2-drop in the trash at that point, and felt pretty bad, as you might expect. But you know what? We got 2 Nexuses and a Nexi and a Dream, getting to draw a bunch of cards, and eventually we're going to see some more Fabled Beast and hopefully some other key threats that we can start to turn back the game for us. So here's the hex that I mentioned. It's really nice because it has 3 reduction, right? So it costs 1 for a 4K. So it's one cost, 1 core on it for a 4K, which is really nice numbers to hit, but ultimately until we get some more blessed cards, kind of not that exciting. And I think this is where I realized that I had 3 God Beast in my hand. I'm like, okay, this is not where we want to be in this matchup. So here I wanted him to spend his cores to just see like what else he had to summon. Here we're gonna go for a block into an absolute ice shield just to end the turn. I was kind of hoping he might like deploy some Nexus or something like that. I'm not sure that was really worth it as a play. Probably just a mistake not to put in the burst and let him attack with 2 instead of letting him attack with 1. But like the guy he played can't block anyways, so it's like he attacked with 2. Again, probably just a mistake on my end looking back at it now. Yeah, this is it was this turn in particular. So we have a Hippocampo. We're just trying to dig for cards here, trying to figure out what we can play again. The fact that it costs 2 does hurt our hand quite a bit, but now we're able to loop into some Freezetol, hopefully get some more card draw online, and now our God Beasts are hopefully going to start, you know, punching across the board and getting us some more value that way. And here I'm trying to figure out what to do with this extra core that doesn't really do anything anywhere, so it's important to know that I should have put it on the, and I'm gonna do a little bit of a board cleanup here anyways, right? It should have gone on the God Beast just to make them both 11s, because everything else dies of Burning Force anyways, no matter what we do. It's just how it is. So we get the attack in, we're moving some stuff around. So now he does have the Scorched Battlefield, which is just going to power up his entire board, and now also start to threaten, right, some card draw on his side on the following turn too. So something that we definitely have to be mindful of. So here are just some quick passes on both sides. Penton dies. We get to draw a card off the Freezetol. Here we're blocking with the God Beast, just remove one of his guys. So he's really just taking a very aggressive line here, trying to control our board, which makes sense. Trying to chip away while we don't have a absolute ice shield down, and then we know that we won't be able to protect against a unless we get like another Hippocampo, right, to heal back up to 2. He hits us down to 1 life, and then we can't absolute ice shield anymore in our burst zone because we just die before it activates. So Hippo dies, and then he's forced to attack for that last one just to put us down to 1 life. But of course, it's me. It's Hippocampo. It's your boy coming back. So he's going to draw us 2 cards. He's also going to heal us a life. So now we can put this absolute ice shield into our burst zone. And this is probably like my favorite thing about Hippocampo in this matchup in particular. Just being able to like force your opponent to swing out. We get to now pop their absolute ice shield in return and heal back up to 2. I was thinking about trying to play around like another break, but then it would have cost both our Nexus and 4 cores, and we would have only been at 6k anyway, so it didn't do anything. And sorry, this is the turn where I clean up my board and put the God Beast to 11k. So again, in this case, the Freezetol doesn't do anything for... And the Rex player is just going to expand his board, try to get some more units out, play to the 3000 boost that Gigano Rex has, and Freezetol is just going to help us cycle through some more cards here. And I'm pretty sure here there was just some back and forth, double checking power levels, figuring out what I can block with. If I let it go, do I want to cycle the Freezetol? Just do the God Beast, want to try to get some blocks, and I'm just kind of like counting out what he can do at this point. But again, he's getting a total of plus 4,000 power from Gigano Rex and 3,000 from Gigano Rex and 1,000 from these Scorched Battlefields. And here we do actually have another Exhaust Nexus, so we're able to effectively negate his Gigano Rex boost and shrink everything else on the board. Now, it's important to note that some BP boosting effects will only be for the battle phase. So in normal considerations, the 1-drop would have died too, but Gagano specifically states until end of turn. However, here we're going to have the Burning Force and that thing that I talked about earlier where it's Exhaust Nexus into Burning Force, clear up his board, and now immediately swing the game heavily in our favor because of those 2 cards coming online for us. And again, that was through a BP boost as well, which is really important to remember. So here we're able to go wide enough. He doesn't have an absolute Ice Shield. Ervata, again, going to get us 2 attacks for the last attack that he has to block or answer. So we're able to just go wide and clean things up. So again, the Exhaust Nexus and Burning Force combo can be really, really strong against a wide variety of decks. But that's it for today's video, and we'll see you in the next one.